Got Aly from Flummox live on the phone. How has your time been since the whole quarantine, staying home thing? How obviously I don't want to get into the pandemic. I feel like everyone's talked about it enough. But
Right.
how has your time been the last couple months? How has life changed for you and Flummox over the last 3 or 4 months?
Oh, drastically. Actually, well, right before, I think a lot of bands had similar experiences to what we did. We were, of course, no exception. Basically, like, we were supposed to go on tour starting in late April. We were going to hit all over the East Coast, go up to New York and all this other stuff. And then we had all of these other gigs that had not been announced yet that were booked out towards, like, the West and a few up north. And they all got canceled within about a week. And 15 or 20 gigs or so. And yeah, and so, we had just recorded this EP and all of these songs, and we had actually just released another EP back in February. And so, we had all kinds of promo planned. We were about to start filming some music videos, and now we're basically back at, like, almost, well, not square one of planning, but we definitely had to go back to square one of planning, like, everything around this. So you will probably see some Flummox live streams here in the next month to coincide with the release of the single. So, we have not been idle. We've been writing and everything and trying to get all of our ducks in a row. So we can actually do stuff again once, the coronavirus has stabilized a little bit. So
yeah, and I think you're noticing right now the difference in, like, bands like you guys who have kept busy and kept things going versus, some bands that took some time off. And so it feels like you don't really miss a step whenever you've kind of kept writing and kept things going throughout the entire process. So I love that.
Yeah, like, at this point it's not just us that's affected, it's everybody that's been affected. So everybody's been kind of going a different route about it. A lot of bands just have, like you said, just taking a break, and they won't be doing anything until next year. And we're not trying to get out and do shows too early. Like, a lot of, I've seen, like, some people have already started to do shows, and, hey, that's their risk, but we're going to try to, like, probably if all goes well, fingers crossed, like, we're trying to do shows by the fall.
Yeah, I think that seems like a fair bet. I think, because I agree with you. I feel like it's such a risk at this point, and not just in the sense of the physical danger, but I think that there is a sense, at least for, like, big festivals, there's a fear of a backlash too of starting too soon, and there's like a public backlash worry too. There's so many different worries out there. So I think you're playing it safe, assuming that hopefully by the fall things can at least get back to maybe a half capacity. Because there are some shows that are allowing like 20 people in, and it just feels like that would be kind of a weird vibe anyways,
I like the idea of some of these venues have had where they have actually invited bands. Like, I think the East Room did it, and I think I've seen a couple other venues do something similar. But basically, they invite, just like a normal, a normal band, or like basically like a normal set of bands or whatever, like you would have in any other Friday night, before this, and they would just play their set live over a live stream, but still on stage, still with that kind of sound gear. And I think that's a really good idea. And I think in the future, like, if this continues, at least if venues took that route, it might actually help save, not just save them in general, but save them a lot of trouble of, not having any sort of income or what have you coming in, like, then something would be happening.
Oh, absolutely. You know what this whole situation reminds me of? I don't know if you're familiar with this. There was a terrible movie about 10 years ago starring Bruce Willis called Surrogates. Have you seen that movie?
I don't think so, no.
It was pretty bad. It was a low-budget sci-fi movie, but for some reason, I loved it. But the whole premise of the movie is it's in the future, and it's Bruce Willis is young, and it goes through the whole movie. I don't think you even realize to the very end that everybody is at home, and they're, like, old, and they live in, like, little pods, and they just live in virtual reality, but they're, like, running these machines that are, like, now fake humans. So, like, everything outside of your house is not – you never leave your house, basically. And it's just eerie how much 2020 is becoming Surrogates starring Bruce Willis. It's very strange.
More and more so, but unfortunately, a lot of the old people have stopped believing that the virus is even a thing.
Yeah, it is two different realities out there. I've noticed that. I've noticed there's some people who believe something and the other believe a totally different thing. It's pretty wild to see that happen. The division is definitely more apparent now, I think, than it ever has been in my entire life, at least.
Oh yeah, same. Very much so. Very much so. And I mean, as somebody who works retail, I see it daily. So,
yeah, I would say as an essential worker, I bet you've seen totally all the. So, what are the rules exactly for, like, in your situation? Are masks required to come into, like, where you work at least for like customers?
I have to. I definitely have to wear a mask. It's before I clock in or anything. They take my temperature and they ask me the same 4 questions, which is basically like, have you experienced these symptoms? Have you bumped into somebody with the coronavirus that you know of? You know, like, and if you answer any of those questions, yes, they send you home with no pay for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So it's not exactly the best. Like, on one hand, it's like, oh yeah, you guys are trying now. No, you're not. You're not actually gonna pay me if you send me home.
Yeah,
you know, like it's not a good system. It almost is, but it's not.
Yeah, what a different world it would be if they were like, oh, you have it. We're going to give you $5,000 and 2 weeks off. You're like, all right, well, in that case.
Later, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Like, I would have loved. I've been working this whole time.
Okay, yeah.
I did not stop at all.
No, I love that. Me too. But obviously, I'm in a glass box by myself. So I think that, you know, being out there on the front lines, I definitely think that's very, very, very respectable and pretty rock and roll in my opinion. So the
I mean, you know, I definitely took up drinking a little more, but, you know, other than that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have. I was sober for like 6 months until this thing happened. Now it's like, well, goodbye to that.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, I can relate. I can totally relate.
Yeah, totally. So the new single it's coming out on Sunday, right? The new single, where it's going to be on Bandcamp.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
In Nashville, either Nashville Scene or the Cream section, they're actually going to be doing a digital premiere as well.
Oh, very, very cool. So the brand new single out today. So the name of the song is, there was 2 files you sent me, so I want to get the title right, but there was 2 files. One said Trans Girls. The other one says Trans Girls Need Guns. What's the title?
It's the latter.
I love that. Trans Girls Need Guns, out now on their Bandcamp page. Tell me something about that title. It sounds very, very rock and roll. I think it's going to turn a lot of heads, and I love that. I love that.
Oh, it definitely already kind of has. So, you know, I'll go. It kind of actually goes back to one of the last times I saw you, Andy, which was last year. We had played Borough Pride.
Yeah,
if you remember.
Oh, I do.
And so, you know, if you've ever listened to Flummox, you may know we have this other song called A Bundle of Sticks, and it's kind of our pro LGBTQ song. And it came out a couple years ago, and, you know, a lot of our fans like it, and we of course wanted to play it at Pride. But because, I mean, you know, Pride, at least this particular set was more of a family-friendly thing in the middle of the day, and our song was very lewd to be singing in front of like, we couldn't play it on the bus. I'll put it that way. And
right on.
Yeah, so, you know, and like the organizers, I had actually hit them up. I was like, would this be okay? And they're like, listen, we love this. We love the song, but no.
At least they were honest.
And I was like, okay, fair enough. So we needed a song that I think would fit. And, you know, the way it is in the world now is, you know, you have trans women being murdered over and over and over again just for being trans, like, and it's something that, you know, of course, being trans myself has definitely resonated greatly. So, you know, I'm reading about all of these different reports, and you know, I don't even remember exactly how it just kind of clicked. I think I was just talking to somebody, and I don't even know if it was me who said it initially. It might have been. But, you know, I was like, trans girls need guns, you know, and, and it just kind of, I was like, you know, and I was like, you know, what would be a good song to kind of aggravate both sides? and you know, like, it is about, you know, the brutality of, you know, I think, like, it definitely ties into what's going on in the world now in the last month or so with, like, the police brutality, because definitely, I mean, there's been a lot of that towards us as well. And, I mean, like, we're definitely, I guess, kind of putting this out almost like we were going to put this out about this time anyway, depending on whatever was going on, whether there was a virus or not. And we're hoping that it's not super tone deaf in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's not necessarily a song that says go out there and commit a bunch of violence. It's really a song that it's not exactly subtle, but at the same time, it's not just direct either. It's very much defending your own and defending yourself, defending those that are marginalized and possibly weaker than you. There's so many different variables about a song like this. Like, you could say trans girls need guns as a chorus, or you could say trans girls need guns, except in this particular instance. In this instance, they probably should have this and this, and there's all kinds of different ways to approach it.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to simplify a very complicated issue to get it through a rock song. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But also at the same time, like we definitely stick by everything that we've put into this song, and we have been very. I'll say that we've all been very drawn to what's been going on in the news, and everything that's going on with the Black Lives Matter protests and the like, and so that's definitely been another interesting factor to include when it comes to this song. Because I know of at least just in the last month, like, I don't remember the exact number, but it's I want to say like around a dozen trans women have been murdered.
Oh, wow.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Or hospitalized. I feel like at least a couple of the girls I'm thinking of were just brutalized in some way, but still, it's very common, especially when you consider how few of us there are compared to other certain types of people, because the statistics for violence against us is incredibly high, no matter which way you look at it. So that's what the song's about.
No, absolutely. And I love it. It's almost like, like you said, it's like a song about, needing to protect. The whole demographic of that needs a protection. And I think it's cool because so many bands are scared to make a statement they truly believe in. Have you noticed that? It's like most bands will toe one line, but they won't toe the other ever. And so when I saw that title, and I remember thinking, wow, this is really gonna make both sides kind of angry. And I love that. I think if you can make both sides mad, then you've won.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Because, you definitely have, it kind of goes without saying, like, the more conservative crowd is not going to be a fan of trans girls need guns. But,
yeah.
you also have a lot of, I guess you could say more centrist type liberals who don't think we need guns for anything, and it's definitely a complicated issue. Don't get me wrong,
Totally.
With everything that goes on in this country regarding guns, like, it's a very complicated issue. But taking away, and this is gonna, I already know some people are already listening to this and being like, what's she gonna say? But, I guess you could say, if you take away arms from marginalized people that are already brutalized and are always targets of violence of some sort, then there's nobody to protect those people. Because as we've seen, the police don't do a good job. So, we're a lot of us have to take it into our own hands. And it's also, I'm not even necessarily saying, there's, again, a lot of variables. If I'm being, legitimate, a white trans girl like me is probably going to not have the same problems that a person of color who is trans will have when it comes to owning a firearm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's again, a lot of variables here. But like you had said earlier, and or at least brought up earlier, it's definitely a song about defending yourself and sticking to your own. We are definitely unapologetic about that.
Yeah.
And, like a lot of bands, I feel like a lot of bands, they don't necessarily, nowadays they can say, this is what their, my views are, this is what we believe in, without having to write it into a song, because social media is a thing now.
Yeah, it's true.
Facebook status about it.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of bands, unless they're like already like super like political crossover thrash bands or something, like you're not going to really hear those kind of things. I do agree with that. So, but we've always kind of snuck our views into our music, so it's not exactly new for us to do something like this.
No, I think it's great. I mean, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the phone, Aly, but I've always thought that you're one of the bravest people in music that I know, and your band is also very brave because you guys just truly do whatever you want. And to me, that is what rock and roll is supposed to be, and that's why we all got into this business. So I really do mean that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, like with Flummox, we've always been about pushing boundaries and doing, whatever, not only whatever we feel like, but whatever we feel like would get a reaction.
Yeah.
So whether or not people liked our show, they would remember it. And, they would always remember that weird band that they saw, whatever, that night. And, I mean, like my life has definitely changed drastically. Obviously personally, of course, but definitely within the context of the band as well.
Yeah.
Since my transition in the last couple of years. And, there's definitely been some, I've had people who are fans of us, straight up basically say that like I transition as like some sort of, like popularity sort of thing. Like it was some sort of gimmick. Like, I went through like hormone replacement therapy and like psychologists and personality tests. And,
that's a heck of a gimmick.
All the harassment and violence and shit. Like, and all the harassment and everything that comes with that. So, it really is kind of bizarre, like the reactions that have come from it. Because on one hand, you get those people, and then on the other hand, you get people who never really would have cared about us beforehand, but then they're like, oh, there's like a trans woman in this band, I'm going to check it out, which is cool.
Yeah.
But, like we definitely get lumped in with a lot of bands that we sound nothing like, but because they have a trans woman in the band. Like if you go onto our Spotify, you'll see like related artists are like Gloss and Laura Jane Grace and these other trans artists, and that's all we have in common. Like Gloss is a punk band, and like Laura Jane Grace is more alternative, and like it's so it's got its pros and its cons, but I'm also embracing it. I'm also not going to shy away from it. I basically kind of transitioned in front of an audience.
Yeah.
So it's already out there. So I'm just kind of embracing it.
No, I love it, and it's been great to watch the journey and just to see the band grow, and obviously we love you guys here at the station. I mean, your music's always been great, and I always love when you put new stuff out. Let's get into this tune, and I really appreciate you calling in, Aly. And once all this blows over and we can have guests live in the studio again, I want to get your band back in here again and hang out with y'all, because it's always fun to have you up. Right now, it's just me. Even Corey Tucker can't come up here. It's crazy.
Oh, wow, yeah. I was going to ask about Corey and see how he was doing.
Yeah, he seems to be doing good. He's doing his first show back. I think it's going to be July 3rd. It's at the East Room, and they're going to do like a very limited crowd is coming out. But I definitely miss him. He's called in a few times and sent me like his list. But, it's also tough because his whole thing was the Corey's concert calendar, and it's just like nothing every week. But
there's no concert calendar.
Yeah, exactly. So we did a thing for a while where he'd give me like countdowns, like things not to do during quarantine, like little funny things like that. But yeah, so once it all blows over, I want to get you all back in and tell the band I said hello, and brand new stuff from Flummox right now. Trans Girls Need Guns.